Parents, welcome to our discussion on the lab journal and how we set this up. So I wanted to show you, this is a finished lab journal from several years ago. So just so you know that as we go through this, I'll kind of show you some past examples. But for what your kids learned today in class, if you look on page 126 of your guide, it gives you most of the information I'm about to give you, including how to fill in the cover, always write in pen, things like that. I want to show you what we talked about in class today. So they all got their composition notebook, and we talked about the front page, which is our title page. So in your guide, it actually tells you to write it on the front cover. I would suggest write it on this first page because the front cover just doesn't really give you the room for it. And what they'll write is they'll write the science fair, the date, and then your student's name, their phone number, a way to reach you. If you want to leave your phone number off, you can. It's really in case this gets lost, someone knows how to get it back to you. And then put my name in there as well. Now, the first thing they need to do is they need to number their journal. So in the top corner, they're going to put pages, and they literally will number the entire journal. Now, if you'll notice, because we start on the right-hand side, all the right-hand pages are odd numbers. So if your child gets to the back and suddenly their numbering switches and it's even, you're going to know somewhere there's a numbering problem. So just remind them to keep their eye on that. All right, so we have our title page. They need to do this at home. We did not do it because everybody needed to have a pen and not everyone had a pen handy. So that's something for them to do at home. And then we started on page 3 and we talked about how on page 3, you're going to start your table of contents. Now, our table of contents will be built as we write in our journal because we don't know the page numbers yet. However, we did go ahead and put in the very first thing that they need to have, which is your science fair schedule, and it's going to be on page number 7. So they are going to want to write this in. It's going to look just like that. Table of contents, science fair journal, page 7. I told them they need to skip a page because I know from past years, their table of contents is going to end up going into the second page. So don't do anything on 5. And then when you get to 7, they already have this glued in, which is the actual project of what is due each week to stay on schedule. Now, what's due on week 11, this research project, or the research problem, I'm going to talk a little bit about it because we did not fully get into the point that I assigned this to them because a lot of them were still working through what they wanted to do for their project. But I do want to tell you a little bit about it. So if your child is at a point that they are ready to write out their research problem, they will simply, you can go to the next page because there's nothing else in between it. They will write out the research problem. Now in class, I gave them lots of things that I have wondered about over the past couple of days. And so this was one of them. Recently, it seems like we've had a lot of spills in our kitchen. We ran out of paper towels, so I went to the store to buy more, but because of shipping issues, they were out of our favorite brand. There are so many options. Some are only $1. And I wonder, do all the paper towel brands absorb well? Which one is the most absorbent? Now in this, I didn't tell you how I was going to solve the problem or figure it out or how I'm even going to measure it. I'm just telling you where my research question is going to come from, what I had been wondering. So if you're doing a project on, I gave them the example in class about batteries, like we had flashlights and our flashlight was dead. And I thought, man, what is the best battery for a flashlight? That would be what you would write here. Just kind of, it's just a short paragraph summary, maybe even a few sentences, why you came up with what you're going to be experimenting on. So this isn't the experiment. It's really what you're wondering, not what you're actually testing yet. So I led into it because I wonder which ones are absorbent. Now, I don't have it in here yet, but my next part will be when I actually create my research question. And we're going to do that in our next class. So don't go ahead. All you need to do right now is the research problem. If they are not prepared with their problem, that's fine. Have them write it up on a separate sheet of paper and bring it into our next class. And we are going to talk about the problems. And then they can go home and they can do this at home and then immediately go into their question because your research problem really leads straight into your question. So I want to show you, this was our lab journal from last year's class. We have our same exact things. We set it up. And then we went into our problem. This was our problem from last year. This summer, it seems like potato chips were on the biggest side to have at picnics and lunches. It was interesting that sometimes my fingers were so oily and greasy after eating chips. I wondered why some chips were oily and others didn't leave my fingers feeling dirty. I wonder which potato chip would be the best choice to avoid greasy fingers. So that was the research problem. Now, a couple years ago, my daughter did this, and when she did hers, she went in and her research question, now, if you know, or her research problem, her research problem, she was about using non-toxic cleaners at home. So she went through and she wrote up her research problem about how to find out which cleaners kills the most germs. So I thought that was pretty good. Now here's what I want you to notice. Anytime, once you get to your research problem, anytime you write in your journal, you need to put your date. So this one was on 10/28. This one was on 11/5. This one was 11/21. Make sure at this point, anything you write in your journal, you date it, because that way we see the sequence of events for your entire experiment process. So this is the first step. It's one of the easier steps simply because all they're really doing over the break is they're setting up their journal so that it will be ready to go. Now then, what I can do now, I'm not going to do it in here yet because I want to wait and do it in class so that they'll see this. But what I can do is skip a line and go back into the next one. And that's where, let me use my old one. That's when I would go in and I would write the research problem and then put whatever page number it's on. Now notice my table of contents is not dated. You do not need to start dating until you get to the page where you write your research problem. From here on out, anything you write in here needs to have a date on it on the page that you start adding that information. I hope this is helpful. Please remember, your guide is your greatest source of information right now. Everything that we're doing, we are walking through the scientific method, and we're going to take them through the wondering. That's the first step. And then our background research, we're going to talk about that next week, how to create a hypothesis based upon the background research, and we'll continue to go through the scientific method. If you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks.